And now for the last part of the tutorial. Let's open a new file and then on BlenderKit search for tires and you will find the one you like, basically. I won't teach you how to make tires because I think CG Masters did one of the best videos you could find on how to make one. So I'll just import this one and into the folder files in the Google Drive link in the description, you can probably find some rims model. Now I encourage you to make your own and I will probably make a video in the future on this, but you can find plenty of free or paid alternatives on CG Trader and other websites. So let's import it. Shouldn't take more than a few seconds, may depend on your hardware. So once it's here, I will scale it down, and now the rotation was kind of messed up. Scale will always be crazy when you import them into Blender, usually at least. So scale it until it's about the right size. Then rotate it here, or you can check into the object properties, see if you can just replace it straight. Alright, let's delete that tire model with L. And now it's a very, very dense rim. And I will also delete those brakes. For the brakes, you can use free ones, or I have some on BlenderKit, I believe. And into the file folder. Now, once you're done deleting the tire, you can select all the faces of that object, then put the cursor to center, set its rotation to 0, see if it does that or not. If it fixes it for you, then good. Then you'll scale it over here. Now this is pretty strange, and honestly I'm not sure of what caused this, but just apply the transforms and then we can scale it. I suggest you do the set origin to center of mass volume, just so you can scale from the center instead. Just like so, and then put it to where the rim is with Shift S. Scale it up until it fits nicely in it, just like so. And we'll set the materials. So get rid of those, usually the base one that come from other file formats or software have specular value of 1 and messed up sliders. So honestly I prefer to just create new ones. You can also import the Mitsubishi logo or whatever brand you're doing and put it on the center hubcap. So let me just search for that Mitsubishi logo. You can type PL to find all the assets I made that are on BlenderKit. So cars, accessories for cars, windshield wipers, everything basically. So here it is. Let's just hide this and then put it on the center. Rotating it by 120 degrees. Let me turn that on just before I forget. Now you can edit the top and just pull them back so that they fit more nicely if your center cap is curved. So I'll just put that chrome. Wait for Eevee to compile the shader, always takes some time. Now, let's save this and then copy all the objects. And we're going back to edit the SUV or your design. My bad, we forgot to add the brakes. So open those brakes, then copy all the objects, then come back into the wheel, Ctrl V to paste them. And I highly suggest you to parent them all to one object. You can just delete that mirror modifier. So I parent them to this here. And now I will rotate it by 90 degrees to place it inside of the wheel. Just like that, scale it down till it makes some sense. If you don't want red caliper, just change that. So that's why the mirror modifier was there. Alright, now it should be good. Now this is a very, very high poly brake model, so I recommend you to use a different one if you need to save up on geometry. Alright, now everything is parented to that empty. So we can copy all of those objects and bring them into the file of our SUV. And now those are pretty messed up, but it's not too bad. No close-up will be done. And that's why it's always better to model your own rim, although it can save you some precious time to buy them or download them. I'll just save this here and open the SUV. Should take a few seconds, just like so. Then inside view, paste all of your objects. Put them where they need to be. You may need to scale them down. Just moving with the empty, I will put it in the center. Okay, that's pretty good. Now duplicate with Alt D and not Shift D, so it doesn't impact the performances so much. Alright, let's move this over here. Try to keep them the same size. And then what you want to do is mirror them on the other side. You can use modifiers, although this will require extra geometry. And when you want to turn the wheels, it may be a bit weird. So select all your wheel objects. So don't forget the logos. And then with the cursor to world origin, or at least on the center axis, just like so. We'll now select our wheel and Alt D to duplicate them. After this is done, you can see I forgot the logo here, so I will select it. So Alt D and then SX -1. Just like that. Alright, now we have our big wheels. And they're looking a bit too flashy for me. So I'll just start by that caliper, make it white or gray or whatever colors you want. And then make my rims darker. And voila. It's almost done. you just need to add those windshield wipers, which are always a pain to do. So I just import some from BlenderKit. Let me just spice that up. You can just play with the fitment until you're happy with it. You can also make the car less wide if you think it is too much, or wider if you didn't do it enough. Let's now add an axle that will connect both wheels. Doesn't need to be very detailed, although if you have a model already of it, you can just import it. So for this, let's set our 3D cursor to the center of the wheel, just like so, and then adding a cylinder. Rotate it on 90 degrees or align it with views when spawning it. Then scale it down until it's about this size. Move it here, select those vertices and move them to the other side, just like so. Then you can go into the trouble of cutting that wheel arch, but I won't. It's really just simple and it won't be seen much except in like a pure black cut, like silhouette inside the render. So I'll just bevel that edge and then scale it using Shift and X so it doesn't scale on the X-axis. Turn on Auto Smooth, then make this a very dark material, and you can add a bevel one if you need to. A bevel modifier. Alright, I'll just make that black. You can turn down the specular and increase metallic if needed. And for this skid plate, let me just move it upward. Just so we can see the axle a bit better. Now I think we could have done a better job at making the front less boxy, like making the front end finish in a cleaner way, I guess. But it will teach you the basics you need to know about car modeling, and I think for that you should have learned a lot if you finish this series. Okay, so we can just move it down or up, scale it up if you need to, just like so, and duplicate it with Alt D again. So with Alt D, you just want to duplicate it and then move it to that rear axle. Sorry for the delay. Alright, see how it looks. You can scale it up if you think it's not visible enough. So it will be more visible in some angles than others, like here you can see it pretty well. Let me just see how that looks, and I still think it's too much black in that area if I do it. So I'll just keep it this way. We can now add some seats, and let me just blacken those toe hooks. But yeah, we can make or add seats to that interior so it's a bit more realistic. So I will once again use BlenderKit for this and just search BL and download some generic seat model. And I will see you in a few seconds where I install them. So it's fairly easy, like here. Let me turn that on. And so I installed the brown seats you can see here off camera. But now download the windshield wiper and then put it over here. Now if you wanted to do the best quality job and tailor this wiper for your car, or if it was to be very visible, I would use a lattice modifier to just edit how it looks and just make it flush against the windshield. But other than that, you can just do your best to place it accordingly. And yes, I don't know if I showed this, but I added a plane and just put a black material on it to hide the light that might be coming from that hole. And so let me just place that over here. Just like that. They can be a bit bigger and this one could be placed better. Okay, let's do the same for the rear one. And now this model might not be adapted for a rear windshield, so we may need to edit it, or you can download another model. I think there is one specifically made for like flatter areas. So this is a very bad and very basic model. I'll just rotate it and do it the dirty way by placing it over here, just like so. We may need to use proportional editing for this or rebuild this surface. Now it will be easier if I move this down instead. With Ctrl Plus, I will just increase my selection up until the bevel is selected completely. Then move that down. Okay, for this, let's just do that plate I was talking about. So I'll just extrude it a bit here. And now let's turn it into a dashboard. A very basic one at that, but I'll just extrude the base of the windshield, remove everything from that vertex group, and then make a bump here and apply the mirror modifier so you can edit only one side. Then selecting this, I will just move it down, and selecting this, I will just move it down. And that's how you make a basic dashboard. Make sure to shade it smooth and give it the darkest material you can. It's not worth giving it the leather texture or something like that. I don't think it is, at least in my experience. And let's just turn that down. And you can make a plate under to hide the light. So selecting that edge loop, let me just separate it into a new object, then select it, extrude it on the x-axis until it clips, add loop cuts over here, and extrude it once, move it up so it passes above that axle, just like so. And that's all you need to do pretty much. Now you could make it more detailed, but think about the efforts you would put in and the visibility you will get out of it. So it will never be seen by anybody, so I will not model anything below, unless it was a client that was asking for this, or we would see it in the render. But yeah, just give it something else than the car paint material. Plastic will do. And like that, this is pretty much the end of our series for how to model a car inside of Blender without any existing blueprints, reference, or sketches, I guess. Let me just add a titling loop over here. I think it could use of some, just like that. I'm not sure if I showed this in camera, making this housing for the rear tail light, but it's basically just the outer loop extruded inside the car and then filled with faces and removed from the shrink wrap group. So very basic stuff that we did 100 times in this series already. So I'll just make it bigger because I think we could see the red from the glass from here. So let me fix this and pull that inward a tiny bit. So that was the red I was talking about. And you can increase it, the size of that. You could also cheat by making your glass not only rim, or changing the inside material to a plastic so it stops reflecting as well. So all of our inside is now black because I put the material offset to 1 and the second slot is a plastic. And I unchecked only rim. But yes, this is the end. Thank you so much for following me, and I'll see you in the next one.